This week, our heroes get into a whole host of trouble. Silk sets up her final confrontation with Black Cat, Miles Morales barely makes it out of a tough spot, and 4 kids walk into a bank. That's it, 4 kids walk into a bank. What's up, comic book compadres? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Shelf Appeal, where I go over what I picked up for the week, give you a rough idea what I thought, and whether it's something you should pick up too. To start off with, we're going to go with a really simple book from Robbie Thompson, and that is going to be The Amazing Spider-Man and Silk, The Spider-Fly Effect number 4. So this book is a continuation of a short mini-series. I believe that it was released as a webcomic first, where we see Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and Cindy Moon, Silk, travel back in time. Overall, it's a fun little read. It's not really anything that delves too deep into stuff. It really gives a little bit more character development to Uncle Ben, and that's really what it's good for. There is a little bit of a question as to whether this is going to be the final book in this series. I'm assuming it is, and if it's not, oh well. Then there's a book I forgot to pick up last week, and that's the Ultimates number 8. So with the Ultimates number 8, we see how the Ultimates were developed. This is the origin story of the Ultimates and how they came to be. Then we also see the aftermath of Civil War. It's kind of Al Ewing's way of paying homage to this storyline that's going on, this greater Civil War II storyline, but also telling the story that he wants to, because we're going to see Thanos become a much bigger player in this story than, say, the Civil War II story written by Brian Michael Bendis. Now for a book that I simply picked up because of the cover, that is Extraordinary X-Men number 11. So, as you can see, that is Wolverine, or it's Old Man Venom, or Venomverine, or something like that, and the alien symbiote has taken over Old Man Logan, who's part of this X-Men team, and that's the only reason I bought the book. Ramos's art is always fantastic. This cover absolutely kills me, and I think the story inside is a little bit lackluster, simply because of the X-Men Age of Apocalypse, Apocalypse War kind of tie-in that they've got going on there. Not really a fan of that overall concept. I think it'd be better if it was in a different storyline, but you can't fault the guy for the art. This isn't something that I would pick up normally, so I was mostly happy with what I saw, and it's probably something that I'm not really going to be picking up again, simply because it didn't really have anything that could hold my interest. I kind of want to see this arc finish, so that way I can try and jump on in another one and maybe be a little bit more invested, because I really like everything else that Jeff Lemire is writing. After that, we have Captain America Steve Rogers 2. And this is a book that's a continuation of the first issue, which caused a huge shitstorm on the internet. And the biggest problem that I have with this book isn't the book itself. The biggest problem I have is this stupid little Hail Hydra icon on it, which basically gives away that, yay, this is the origin story of what happened to Captain America, because nobody can understand how storytelling is supposed to go. You don't need to put that on the cover. You just let people read it. You let people, absorb the story. It's extremely frustrating when you have to put this kind of seal on it to say, this is how things happened, we're going to let you know. I just let Nick Spencer write the damn thing, man. That's all it's really about. I feel like this is a huge gimmicky kind of thing that's on the front of it. And overall, the story, it's exactly what I expected. It's just like, yeah, the Red Skull manipulated the Cosmic Cube. He has made the... he basically has the ability to warp reality because he's taken this Kobik, this shards of a Cosmic Cube that's become this little girl and earned her trust. He's not even forcing her to do this kind of stuff. He's just created a situation where she remembers him from a previous story, from his previous presence, and is going to him for support in a time where she is scared, and he is taking advantage of that situation. Even though he's got Professor Xavier's brain shoved up in that big red melon on the top of his shoulders, he feels like it's too easy. He needs to be a master manipulator. And if you see how he sets this whole thing up, like, basically this explains everything behind the Avengers standoff and all that kind of stuff that's developed into putting Steve Rogers where he's at right now. If you let Nick Spencer tell that story without being such a... Yes, I'm very frustrated. Overall, book was very good, and I want to continue to see where this goes, because now the story isn't about how Captain America became a Hydra agent. It's how Captain America can unbecome a Hydra agent. How he can unwarp that reality. And that's what it should have been about from the beginning, and that's what people should have understood. So, yeah, I definitely recommend that you pick it up, because it looks like Nick Spencer's going to tell a good story in this one. Then we're on to a book from my pull list, and that is Silk number 9. So, in Silk number 9, we're going to see Cindy Moon and Black Cat, Felicia. They're basically infiltrating Parker Industries, and Felicia's, she's suspect of Silk as it is. And they break into Parker Industries. She gets what she's calling a lie detector, and she goes about figuring out what the overall plan is. Robbie Thompson's taking his time with his story arc. He's not really actually in a specific story arc. He's just telling tales month after month after month without having some kind of distinct 5-issue, 7-issue, 3-issue kind of arc plan. So this is just a very overarching story for Silk and Cindy Moon as a character, which I'm totally fine with. The biggest and most refreshing thing about this book is that Stacey Lee is back on art. As she helped shape the Silk character, this is a very welcome return for me, and it really reminded me what she brought to this book. Nothing against Tana Ford's art. It's just that I feel like Stacey Lee just captures Silk better in my perspective, because that's how I was originally introduced to the character. Then another book that I picked up, and that would be Spider-Man Deadpool #1, 6th printing. So Spider-Man Deadpool, it's a team-up book, and it's about Spider-Man and it's about Deadpool, and it's the kind of relationship that you'd expect from two quippy kind of characters. Spider-Man doesn't really like Deadpool, Deadpool doesn't really care, and this book really goes over that. And you introduce a 100-story-tall fire demon named Dormammu into the universe, and you see how they interact with that. Overall, there's some very interesting and funny exchanges. It's a fun book. It's not meant to be taken seriously, so I'm totally okay with that. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to go run out and pick up the other first printings and second printings and fifth printings and all that kind of stuff to get into the story, but it was enough to keep me entertained for one issue, and it's probably something I'll revisit, maybe in trade a little bit later. So if we're going to talk about team-up books, we have to talk about Spectrum #1. So as a huge Firefly fan, big fan of Serenity and that whole universe, I was really excited to see this, especially because it's kind of a tie-in to the Con Man's web series that they're doing. And this is Alan Tudyk and Nathan Fillion, but primarily this book is just Alan Tudyk as a co-writer with a few other people, and this is a property that would have been based off of the television show that gave them their fandom for the Con Man series that they're producing on the web, very similar to the Firefly series. You never know where it's going to go. It's just an introductory issue, and hopefully they can get some legs underneath the series and turn it into something more. One of the books that I haven't had a chance to read yet was Jupiter's Legacy Volume 2, Issue #1. So this is a continuation of a Mark Millar story, and it's leading into several things. I picked up the first volume for free on Comixology because they had a 24-hour, get this for free kind of situation. I'm going to hold off on reading this one until I've had the opportunity to read Jupiter's Legacy Volume 1, all those issues, just because I want to feel like there's a good continuation to the story. It's very hard to jump into something at this point in time without having that previous understanding, and I don't want to kind of miss out on that. Next, we get into my top 5 books of the week. So to start off the top 5, we have a Dark Horse book, and that is Cryptocracy #1. So Cryptocracy is the introduction of the whole super behind-the-scenes shadow government, like before the Illuminati kind of situation. In this story, there are very limited numbers of people that can shape and influence the world, and it's not like the Illuminati. And what this does is it sets up how those individual families, those houses, so to speak, are warring factions and how they want to, basically exert their dominance and maybe take over these various sections of the world, gain more power, more influence, more control, when they already have control over everything. And what happens when the veil, the thin veil behind the scenes, gets pulled back, when people see the inner workings and how they correct those things. So it looks like something I definitely recommend to people, and that I think they should give a chance. Next, we've got my number 4 book of the week, and that is Spider-Man #5. So Spider-Man #5, written by Brian Michael Bendis, is a very good book. This is a confrontation that has gone on between Hammerhead, the old mobster villain for Spider-Man originally, and then Black Cat, who's also in this book as well as in the Silk book. And they really kind of go street level on this kid, man. They understand that Peter Parker is off swinging webs out in India or in China or wherever the hell he is, and the only thing left is this Spider-Man. And with Felicia Hardy trying to gain the upper hand in the New York crime scene, she sees Miles Morales' version of Spider-Man as a threat to her and her business. So this is her trying to take care of that situation. Of course, Miles gets out of it, but the big thing is how he handles his internal conflict from the previous issue, where essentially his secret identity was outed by his best friend to somebody that had no connection to them at all. There was no sense of trust. And how he's going to overcome that. That's the very humanizing portion of this. Having the bad guy fight, totally fine. But having the interactions of this high school kid and how he deals with these kind of things in his real life. That's going to be the interesting part, and I can't wait to see where he puts that, where Brian Michael Bendis really develops that story and how that moves forward. That's the best part about reading this book. Now we bump into my top 3, where I have SpiderGwen Annual Number 1. So SpiderGwen Annual Number 1, this is a collection of stories all written by Jason Latour, and it doesn't really have anything to do with Spider-Gwen so much. It's really kind of cool, and it's really kind of offbeat, and I'm totally okay with it because there's some really funny, interesting kind of stuff that goes on here. Like, you get the origin story of the Koala Commander. You get a Captain America tale for the Earth 65 version of Captain America, and you get to see Steve Rogers in this universe versus how he is in the 616 universe, and that's really interesting. There's a lovely little homage to Prince. There's some great singing kind of lyrics that go on. I found that really entertaining. And then there's a super funny political Trump kind of moment, too. This dude's just like, I'm from Waco, Texas. And Modak, I think that's how you'd say it, Modak, is a character, a villain that deserves to be undone as soon as possible, if you know what I mean. But yeah, if you're any kind of Spider-Man, Spider-Gwen fan, or you like Jason Latour's writing, it's definitely something you should pick up. I think you're going to be really entertained. I liked it. And then we get into my pick that's coming out of the middle of nowhere, and that is 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank number 2. So 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank really took me by storm last month. The first issue was a great introduction. It had this D&D role-playing kind of situation that led you into these characters, and they open up the same way. This is more of an arcadey kind of version, but what you see is that ultimately, I feel like at this point in time, Paige is the main character of the book, and she's a total badass, and you don't necessarily know what her motivations are, but if you feel towards the middle of this book that she knows exactly what the hell she's doing when she starts throwing pizza and breaking noses, you're like, oh, maybe she is a much smarter character than we thought. And you see at the end of this book, after, a very kind of heartfelt father-daughter kind of moment, what happens when there's going to be that break of trust and how that's going to impact the book moving forward. Overall, Matthew Rosenberg is doing a great job with this. I'm really excited, and he's really the only reason that I'm interested in the upcoming Civil War II Kingpin book, because he's writing it. I think that that's going to be pretty badass, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then we go down to the number 1 book of the week, and that was just because there was so much anticipation for this book. It got pushed back a few weeks, and that is Black Panther number 3, written by Ta-Nehisi Coates and illustrated by Brian Stelfreeze. And I have to say that this is a story unlike what I have been used to in comic books. The way that it opens up with this whole, African tale kind of vibe about how man used to worship at the feet of nature, it used to worship at the feet of Africa, and now they come to burn and to pillage and to raise metal sculptures and to basically create pews for new gods. One of these antagonists is basically nature personified and is going to rectify this situation. They're coming full force to correct a misdeed, to correct the current situation. And I find that this is a really interesting tale, and I'm not sure necessarily how it ties into the Wakandan monarchy, or if it's a commentary on current political environments. I don't know, but I'm riveted, and I love it. It's great. I just really want it to be consistent. I want it to release on schedule because I don't want to wait too long for this book because it's so good. I'm really excited for what Ta-Nehisi Coates is doing, and the art by Stelfreeze is great as always. If you are not reading Black Panther right now, you should be. Go read it now. That's what I should say. Go read it now. So those are the books that I picked up this week, but I want to know what you picked up, so hit me up in the comments. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.